On this week's episode of the Best of Johnston County podcast, our guest is Barry Woodard, the owner and founder of Hometown Realty in Clayton. We talked to Barry about growing up in Johnston County, going off to college, coming back here, starting his real estate career, and then starting Hometown Realty with his cousin. We also talked to him a little bit about how he got drug in to running the Harvest Festival as a young man, not knowing anything about festivals or downtown development, some of the growth of Johnston County, and where he sees the county going in the next 5 to 10 years. So if you're interested in any of this, listen in.
Welcome to another episode of Best of Johnston County, brought to you by Breeden Law Office. Our host, Jonathan Breeden, an experienced family lawyer with a deep connection to the community, is ready to take you on a journey through the area that he has called home for over 20 years. Whether it's a deep dive into the love locals have for the county or unraveling the complexities of family law, Best of Johnston County presents an authentic slice of this unique community.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Best of Johnston County podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden. And on today's episode, we have the co-owner of HTR Realty, Hometown Realty in downtown Clayton, North Carolina, Barry Woodard. And we're going to talk to him a little bit about growing up here in Clayton. You know, some people actually did grow up in Johnston County and around Clayton. How him and James Lipscomb came together to form HTR, which is probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, realty company in Johnston County back in 2001. What their goals were, have they achieved those goals, and where they're going in the future with HTR. But before we get to that, I'd like to ask you to like, follow, subscribe to this podcast, wherever you see it, whether you're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, or the other social media channels of the Best Johnston County podcast. The Best Johnston County podcast comes out every single Monday and has now for about 30 months. So go back and listen to some of our previous episodes, including one of the very first ones we did with one of Barry's partners, Paul Flaherty, in HTR Commercial. We also have had the vast majority of the county commissioners, Congressman Brad Knott. We've had Ed Aldridge from Johnston County Economic Development and River Wild. We've had a lot of great guests on this podcast. If you love Johnston County as much as I do, this podcast is for you. Welcome, Barry.
Thank you so much, John.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. We could do 3 of these, and we're definitely going to have you back because we could just talk and tell stories. But anyway, and we've done some of that before we started recording. So anyway, so tell the audience who you are and what you do.
Well, I grew up in Clayton. I was born in 1963, so I'm 62 years old. I'm not 70. I remember when Clayton was just a small town. We lived off of well water. We had 13 wells in Clayton, and that's what our water was. And I was telling somebody the other day, it was the second purest water in the state. Everybody knew everybody. There's a fun fact here you probably had never heard. In 1970, 94% of the residents of Clayton were originally from Clayton. 94%. And that number today is probably the opposite.
You're
probably 6%. So that's how much in the last 50, 60 years Johnston County and Clayton specifically has changed.
I can believe that. I absolutely can believe that. I remember, I came here in 2000, and I just think about how much Clayton has changed since then. I mean, it's a lot bigger now. And then, of course, you have the town is a lot bigger, but the area surrounding the town is so much bigger. I mean, when I got here, Flowers really wasn't a thing yet. And now it's got hundreds and hundreds of houses.
I remember in the 90s when we were selling, Clayton was primarily a starter home community. Back in the 90s, that's what it was. And you could get a pretty decent ranch style house for under $100,000 back then. And when we would take people out to Flowers, it was a good 5-mile hike from downtown Clayton. And people going, where are you going? This is too far out. I don't want to live out here. and now it's become a destination.
Yeah.
5-6 miles from town.
Well, Becky Flowers has done a great job 100%. With Reed and all of her team. They've built a tremendous community there with the sidewalks and walkability and the clubhouses and the businesses they've drawn. It is a model planned community, and they deserve a ton of credit. I know you've done some work with her out there too, and I got to give it to her and her team because it's really nice. And didn't realize what it was going to become when they started it, but golly, it's really nice.
None of us did. Had no clue.
Yeah, it's massive. You know how many houses are there? It's over 1,000, right?
Oh, way over that.
Right. Yeah, I know. I don't know how many houses.
It was several thousand acres, and I don't even think she's even. She may be over halfway through developing it, so it's still a way. It's still a ways to go.
Golly, that's crazy. So anyway, would you go to college?
Elon.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Another fun fact. So I went to Johnston Community College when I left Clayton High School. And I got associate's degree there at Johnston Community College. And I decided in 1986 I would go in the restaurant business with my brother-in-law. So where Clayton Steakhouse is now on Main Street across from my office, we opened up a restaurant called Bednigo's. It was my dad's middle name. And it was primarily a delicatessen, but we also did dinner, a different menu at night with steaks or seafood, and we had specials. And we also served breakfast. So we would open up at 5 in the morning, and we would close at 9 at night. And back then, Johnston County was dry. And so I did that for 1 year, and it almost broke me as far as it was the hardest work I've ever done in my life. I sold the business to my food distributor salesman, him and his wife, and I went back to school and got my degree.
Okay. What did you get a degree in?
Business marketing.
Okay. So what'd you do after that?
My mom had a clothing store, high-end ladies clothing store called the Town Shop. It was there for 35 years. She had a bridal shop, and she had a tuxedo store, and she had several commercial rental properties and residential rental properties. And so she was getting ready to retire, and I got out of college, and she said, hey, will you come in and kind of run the business while I do that? And I said, sure. So my wife and I stepped in her role when she retired back in 91, 92.
Okay. So you took over the clothing store.
I did.
Okay.
And I hated it.
You hated it. You hated the clothing
It was so
store.
confining. Retail just is so confining. You can't get outdoors. I mean, you got to be there for your customer. She preached that to me. People come there, you got to be there.
Right.
And so it was very confining.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, she owned, and I think she still does, I guess, the building where the Harbor Pizzazz shop is.
I own it now.
You own that. Okay.
Yeah, Mom passed away a year ago.
Okay.
And so that's my building now, and Harbor Pizzazz is still there.
Okay. Well, that's a great store. I'm always promoting Harbor and Pizzazz. And, I've taken more stuff there with tags on it than I want to admit. So you can get stuff that is brand new there that people have never worn, and very nice stuff. And it goes to support domestic violence victims in Johnston County. Okay. Yeah. So I knew that was one of the properties y'all let them be there for, golly, they've been there at least 10 or 15 years.
Over that. Yeah. And we've always been very, very, very fair to them as far as their rents and stuff are concerned, because Mr. Dwayne Poole, who helped get that organization off the ground here in Johnston County, came to us, and we're mutual family friends, and we've always supported them in what they do. And they'll tell you to this day, we've really not changed a whole lot about what we did.
Yeah, that's great. So when did you decide to get into real estate? Other than you were helping your mom with some of the properties she had.
So my sister Valerie decided, her and her husband Danny said, we're going to J.Y. Monk in Fayetteville and get our real estate license. I said, well, you know what? Is it a weekend class? She said, Saturday and Sundays. I said, I want to go. So in 93, I signed up with them, and we drove to Fayetteville for 6 weekends in a row. And I went and got my real estate license.
In 1993?
Yeah. And so James, Lipscomb, my partner, he's my first cousin, was actually already in real estate. And he had taken some of our farm, one of our farms in Archer's Lodge, and started to develop a neighborhood called Archer's Point. And so I had all Mom's financial stuff and books and all that stuff. And I was looking, and I was going, wow, these $5,000 lots, we're making some really good money on this. I mean, a lot was $5,000 back then.
Right.
Compared to 105 to 150 now.
Right.
And I called James. I said, hey, I'm getting my real estate license. I'm coming to work with you. He said, you are? I said, well, yeah, I kind of own the lots and the land. I mean, it only makes sense that we partner. And so we did. We started with Remax and with Randy White back in 94. And we were there until the time when Thad Avent, who is Avent Premier Appraisal, and myself bought that lot on Main Street. There was a trailer there that First Citizens owned, and they used it as a drive-through because they didn't have a drive-through where the Chamber of Commerce is. It used to be First Citizens Bank. No drive-through, so they put a trailer on that lot, and that was the drive-through for First Citizens Bank. And they built the bank on Highway 70. They donated the building to the Chamber of Commerce, and that lot came up for sale, and Thad and I bought it.
Okay.
And then our vision was to go and put a couple of buildings downtown. Larry Christoph also was involved.
Right.
With us.
I know Larry Christoph was part owner of that building.
We did his building on the corner. We did our building in the middle, and we did Larry's building on the side. And there was a restaurant downstairs. We had an engineering firm upstairs. I forget what Larry had upstairs, but he had a Main Street Bistro.
Right. I remember Main Street Bistro.
And so this was in 2001. And we were still Remax. We had a yard sign in our front window, and the chamber had some big corporate event, and some of Remax brass came down and saw our sign and said, hey guys, you got a franchise. You're further than a mile from your home office, and you got a franchise in order to stay. And James and I got a large family. We grew up in Clayton. We knew a lot of folks. We had good name recognition and good standing. People knew we did things the right way. So I said, you know what? It's time to go out on our own, and that's when we formed Hometown Realty.
Oh, man. All right. I didn't know that because I get here in 2000. And that's about when Hometown Realty starts. I do remember you Remax briefly.
Yeah.
And and then you built that building. And
well, I'm gonna have to credit my wife for building the building because she wanted a children's boutique.
Right.
And so my office right now was her shoe department. So she had a store called Buttons and Bows, and it was a children's boutique. And I had the office next door, James and I. And Duke McNichol was one of our partners back then. And we started with 3 of us in 2001. And within about 6 or 7 months, about 9 or 10 of the agents from our old office came to us and said, hey, man, it's boring here. Y'all were the life of the party. Y'all kept stuff stirred up. We want to come work with y'all. And we had no clue, how to house other agents because we were just in this one area of that building.
Right.
And we had nothing. We had 2 builders, Marty Gilbert and Darrell Evans.
Yeah.
And a couple of neighborhoods. And that's all we had. And that's all we knew.
Well, that's all you needed.
As at the time, we thought that, we could make it, as long as we could get by.
Yeah.
And the next thing we knew, we started growing. And we just kind of had to figure it out as we go and had no plans to end up where we are today.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what was the plan? Just to sort of, you have a dream? I know you're both the 2 most community-oriented people I probably know.
So,
so what was the plan?
So I was already involved with the Chamber of Commerce. I was already involved with downtown development. I had no sooner got out of college. Jim Jenkins, who ran Champion Products, called me and said, hey, Barry, I need you to come chair the Clayton Harvest Festival. I'm going, well, what is that? I'd never been, I'd been out of town. So I said, what is it? He said, well, it was Old Soybean Festival, and it's the Clayton Harvest Festival now, and we need some youth to come and take some leadership. So got really involved in the community early. Okay. And that was before we even were in real estate. And then James was on the town council for a while. Matter of fact,
I remember that.
We had taken a number for the complaint department for the town of Clayton for a couple of years while he was on the board. And it's amazing after he got off the board how much our business grew, because that's a no-win situation when you're, when you're on that. And Clayton was just beginning to start growing from a bedroom community to starting to get a little bit of an identity. And I remember the brick mason who came from out of state to do our brickwork because we did old antique brick on our building. We wanted it to match with what was going on. He said, this is the closest thing to Mayberry I've ever seen. And I remember Mr. Elton Pittman and Pittman Jewelers would come by our shop every day while we were building that building and stop in and talk to all those contractors in there. And they just loved it. And really, honestly, Clayton was like a little Mayberry,
right?
In essence. And the character's still there. If you look at the facade of downtown Clayton, it's not changed a lot over the years. We've added a few buildings and we've improved a few areas and paved a few parking lots. But really, the overall aesthetics of it has not changed at all.
Right. No, you're right. And there's so many great businesses down there now. When I got here, it wasn't full completely. But now everything's full. Everything's new. We've got new awnings, and you got fair game. You got the guy selling guitars. You've got bars. You got restaurants. I know that, I guess, James's son is doing Jones Cafe now.
Well, his nephew's
doing
it. James bought it, but he's running it.
Right. Yeah. So, taking over the old Jones Cafe with the hot dogs and stuff. And it's really amazing. If you've not been to downtown Clayton, it's phenomenal now. But you're right. The buildings themselves have not really changed. The tenants have changed.
Yeah.
And, the town did a nice job with the parking lot there next to your building where they do the rides for the Harvest Festival. That was sort of dirt, and they paved it, and they did a nice job with that maybe 20 years ago now.
It's been a while.
Yeah, so I think the town has done a good job. And of course the town, we've talked about this with Bush Lauder. The town was going bankrupt. If you want to go back to the actual town itself, was in bad trouble 2000, 2001, 2002. Luckily they got some new town members, got different mayor and things, they got things going back on the right track. But, you've seen a lot, but I don't think anybody that grew up in Johnston County, there were 61,000 residents in 1990, and now there's almost 300,000.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
You wait till the next 5 years. If you think you've seen something now, you just wait, because obviously it was struggling. Johnston County has always been like the redheaded stepchild to Raleigh and Triangle.
Right.
And there's still a certain segment of people that think, oh, you're in Johnston County. It's Johnston County.
Right.
Johnston County's got an identity now that it used not to have. It's a destination now.
Right.
We're on a level playing field with the Apexes and the Holly Springs and the Wake Forests. We're on that level playing field with them. We have the same stuff to offer, and what we don't have to offer is on the way.
Yeah, no, and you're no doubt. I know that there's probably going to be a Costco in Clayton in the next 3 years, possibly a Chick-fil-A with that as well. With
Well,
that
one's going to Flowers now. Chick-fil-A is going out to Flowers.
Oh, they are? Okay.
Yeah.
I knew there was some debate
Yeah.
about whether that was going to happen, but that is going to happen.
I'm pretty much sure that's going to happen.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if it's an ink deal or not, but I feel confident enough to say it today. I think it's going there.
Have family law questions? Need guidance to navigate legal challenges? The compassionate team at Breeden Law Office is here to help. Visit us at www.breedenfirm.com for practical advice, resources, or to book a consultation. Remember, when life gets messy, you don't have to face it alone.
Okay, all right. Well, that's cool. That would be good. And, Clayton's getting more great restaurants and more shops. And, they're building more out Flowers. I know y'all are building some stuff out at Flowers right now as well. So what do you say to the Drawbridge crowd that dislikes you and James and what y'all are doing because you continue to build houses and they don't want anybody else to move here, and they want to tell farmers they can't sell their land, because we can't support it, there's too much traffic? What do you say to that?
So it's interesting because I can relate somewhat. We live on a family farm a mile from here. We have about 60 acres right off Cornwallis Road, and Clayton just went out 300 foot from us and satellite annexed, 300-400 acres. And there's going to be probably 650 houses out there. And I told my wife, I said, I cannot be hypocritical about this. I said, the only thing I can do is have a sense of reasonability about it. And the way we approach stuff is the national builders found Clayton. And when they did that, it was all bets off. Everything went through the roof crazy. There was managed growth within the custom builder section. And the majority of our builders are more mom and pop, local custom builders. They employ local people. The dollar turns. They reinvest it in the community. They donate to the community. And it's more of a managed plan that we have. We cannot control outside forces that Wall Street controls. And I think everybody's got a right to do with their land what they want to do. It's their land to do. But I do have a more moderate approach to it. I think everything's got to be done in reason. And there needs to be reasonability. It doesn't need to be all one way or all the other way. There has to be a happy median where not everybody's happy about the situation, but the overall is a win for both parties. And so those people that don't like growth is here and it's staying here and it's going to keep coming here. And we've got to be able to maintain and manage it in a reasonable manner. And I think that's the way the county commissioners and the town councils at the different cities need to approach it. Reasonable.
Right.
And I'm all about paying our fair share for infrastructure costs. And I realize, the houses we're having to build now probably are, support the tax base. But we are so far behind on commercial growth. And if you think about it, this just didn't start in the last 5 years. This started 30 years ago when we first started in business. Nobody knew what was going to happen here. It just went way beyond all forecasts and expectations, and it continues to do that. And so we're playing catch up and have been playing catch up. And, there's got to be some approach that makes common sense for everybody for it to work.
Well, and I think this new set of county commissioners with Bush Lauder and Patrick Harris and April Stevens have done a good job of trying to start getting us to catch up. I do think that the group that was there before maybe got caught a little flat-footed. I'm not trying to criticize, but I just think they did. And I think it was this new set that has sort of been like, okay, we're going to have to get on this. Because what I keep trying to tell people is, we're not doing law on this episode. I do law on some of the episodes is, you're not going to stop this. This is going to happen. You just have to be able to manage it and try to direct the growth where you want it to do. And I think the county commissioners have done a pretty good job. And I'm not a huge fan of the town council. They fire a town manager, they hire an interim, they fire him 6 months later, pay him $300,000 to go away. The voters got rid of a lot of those town council members, but I do think with the new wastewater treatment plant there, and they got a great police chief there now, I do think that the town of Clayton is doing better. I don't like the massive tax increases that they continue to pass over and over and over. I don't think that's fair to the citizens, but I don't live there. I don't have to pay those taxes. But I do think that they've got a handle on it. I think the town manager in Clayton now is good. They got a good engineering department, and they definitely got good economic development. I think everything is going as well as it has gone for the town itself and for the county right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's a fine line because you've got big time developers who are eyeballing this area now, and they deal with other municipalities all over the country. And the one thing we get kickback on from a lot of these investors, these big developers, is it's hard to do business here locally. It's more difficult. It costs us more. And sometimes they're not as advantageous about moving in here because of that. But we need that commercial tax base. That's what generates the income. Correct. That should lower our taxes and lower our tax base. But if it's difficult to get in and you put, some roadblocks in the way, and I'm not saying, you don't need some of them, but there again, I'm going to go back to being reasonable about it, how you approach it. And I'm going to, Steve Biggs. I don't know if you ever knew Steve Biggs.
I knew Steve.
But let me tell you, I was a big advocate for Steve Biggs. I know he went through some things, and I know he had some haters, and I know he had people that loved it. But he had a vision. He had a vision for Clayton. And he came to me when I first got in real estate. He said, I need you to chair Downtown Development Association, and here's what goals I would love for you to try to achieve. And they were very lofty goals. But, every one of those goals he had has been met right now. And it took some time. And he left, and it carried on. But he had that initial vision because he had done it before in another town, another small town. He had seen it happen. And he did have that forethought. And so I really respected that about him. I don't know as far as the politics. I tried to stay out of that. I still stay out of the politics. You will never get me involved in the politics of it unless I absolutely think something's wrong. That's the only time I get involved. But it usually, I'm a more, just let me do my thing and I'll leave you alone.
So, where do we go from here? You're building out at Flowers, and I know James, your partner, he's doing lots of land development. Where are we going in the next 4 to 5 years around Clayton? I know you're not just in Clayton, but I know you're mainly in Clayton.
Well, no, we got offices all the way to the coast.
Right, I was about to say.
We got a place out in Morehead City in Miami Beach.
Part owner of a mortgage company.
We're going east. Everything is pushing east because affordability is pushing east. Land here in Clayton and Cleveland and even Wilson's Mills has just gone out of sight. And when you have to put a lot on the ground that's over $100,000, it forces you to build a house that's over $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 to make the justification for the lot cost.
Right.
And so everybody can't afford that. And so you're seeing more developments going into Harnett County's crazy. Harnett County's probably got more new home construction than in Johnston right now. But you're seeing stuff push towards the Four Oaks. You're seeing stuff push into Smithfield now. Selma's starting to really take off. Princeton, Pine Level starting to take off. Kinley is even starting to take off. And I think it's important for those leaders in those communities to understand the growth is coming. Let's get a plan in place. And you're only as good as the consultants you hire. And let me tell you, some of the consultants we've hired probably have missed some forecasts, because obviously we wouldn't be where we are if we'd have hit some of these forecasts. So it's really important to know that maybe you need to take a multiple of whatever you're anticipating it to be in the next 10 years and bump it, just to be sure when you're planning that far in advance. And then you've got a plan in place to try to recruit some of these commercial businesses and restaurants and hotels, stuff that generates tax base. Because if we don't have that, we're just going to keep going up on our taxes.
Well, I think it's awesome with Selma and Venture Development and what they've done there, with all the new restaurants and stores and shops, the new Chick-fil-A and a Longhorn Steakhouse and an Olive Garden and all that right there on 95.
Clayton doesn't have any of that.
Right, Clayton doesn't have any of that yet.
We're the hole in the donut.
Right. But part of the Clayton's issue is it's all at White Oak. And White Oak's not that far.
That's why.
But it is coming. I think it is coming. And I think that development with the Costco is going to be the start of a lot more other stuff if the Costco comes.
Follow suit. So we bought a building in downtown Selma 5 years ago. And Lindsay Dale has our own team. She came to me unannounced one day and said, I want to open my office. And I said, where do you want to go? She said, Smithfield or Selma. I said, I kind of like Selma because it had the same vibe as Clayton had 30 years ago when we first did our first project. And we did that 5 years ago. We went in and did this building, opened an office up, and you could see Selma kind of doing the same thing as far as developing that downtown area and getting an identity. Because if you think about it, most people that move to this area want to go see what the downtown, if there is a downtown, what it's about. It kind of gives you some kind of cultural idea of what's going on in Clayton. And Clayton's very diverse. And the downtown, it's like you say, it's very vibrant. You can go on a Friday, Saturday night, and it's like Glenwood South. It's packed. And you want to see that. It's almost so bad you can't even hardly cross the street for lunchtime, though. So much traffic on that street. So we were worried about losing foot traffic and car traffic in downtown Clayton 25 years ago. We were scared that downtown was going to fold up like some of these other Eastern North Carolina towns. And boy, has it turned an about face over the last 25 years.
Well, it's been great. The Front Street extension helped with that too.
Tremendously.
I mean, that road was a tremendous help to help people get from Flowers and 42 East to downtown without having to get on 70 and fight that and those stoplights and all of that. So let's talk about a little bit about, we could talk all day, and we'll definitely have to have Barry back. I mean, I could do hours with him. But let's talk about some of the community involvement you've been involved in. You've done a lot of different things. You've been named a Main Street champion twice. You've been named Citizen of the Year twice. What are you currently involved in that you're the most passionate about when it comes to the Clayton community right now?
You know, we support a lot of youth sports programs, especially with clients and our agents within the community. We've got several of our agents that have taken the torch from James and myself, and they're really involved in the Chamber of Commerce. They're involved in other, nonprofit groups. We do a lot with the rescue animals. So we spread out our net pretty far with, supporting different charities. And I don't really have necessarily a specific platform. I look where the need is, and we try to fill the void. So if we see something that's in need and somebody comes to us and said, this is a need, then we'll try to figure out a way to partner with some of our other vendors who do business with us and get that need. Just like One Compassion, they do a tremendous job of helping a lot of folks. And so we support that group. And we actually go in Christmas and pass out. And it's so fulfilling to do that. But I did it for so long, Jonathan. I mean, I was chair of the Harvest Festival for 21 years.
I worked on that committee with you a couple times. Believe me, you, Sally Slitwine.
Yeah,
Those were the days.
I went through three chamber directors during my first year presidency of the Chamber of Commerce. I was 28 years old. I didn't know anything about. I mean, we had to borrow money from the Johnston County pageant to keep the chamber afloat. That's how bad a shape it was in. And I went through three directors. Yeah. Ended up with Melissa Oliver. And then Sally came after Melissa left to go to the bank. And so it was a lot of transition in a short period of time. So, I've seen Clayton at the bottom. Yeah. And now it's come a long way. And I think people need to understand, would you want it to be back in 1980 where we were? Or would you rather be in a vibrant community that's got a lot of growth, excitement, and activities for the quality of life? It's just a combination of things.
No, I agree. And I think Clayton's done a great job. I think Western Johnston County's done a great job. I mean, I really think that things are going extremely well for Johnston County and for the town of Clayton. And it's going to continue. You know what I mean? I think it's going to continue. I think we've got a lot of the right stakeholders in place. I think the town of Clayton with their new wastewater treatment plant that's coming online and some of the new infrastructure improvements that are coming there. I mean, they're getting ready. The 42 is finally finished. I took them 15 years to widen that road. But I think it's done now. I mean, finally got the bridge over the Neuse River. Remember, that was a 10 or 15 year project. So, I think there's a lot of positive things going on here that we can look forward and see. And you're right. The commercial is very important for the tax base because commercial buildings don't go to school. They don't need Department of Social Services. They rarely call the police. You know what I mean? It's just, that's where it's at. And you have to have the rooftops and the average income to bring the commercial to follow. And I think now you're starting to see that as the average income goes up, the number of rooftops goes up, and, it's just going to continue. And there's no reason to go to Raleigh for anything if you don't want to, other than maybe to work. And, I know Chris Johnston's working real hard to try to get more development. And Chris Johnston's done a great job. He's been a guest on this podcast. You go back and listen to that episode. But it's tremendous. And One Compassion, Reed Smith, River Wild, all the things they're doing, Ed Aldridge. They're do a ton for the community and always have. And, big fan of what they're doing. And they're at the music festival and the different things that they do every year.
There's so much
as well
going on. There's all the time so much going on in downtown Clayton. Almost every week. There's something going on. Farmers market or something's going on about every week. And I tell you, the biggest challenge I see, and obviously the wastewater treatment's been addressed. Schools is obviously concerned, but roads and road improvements are going to be the biggest challenge in the next 10 years we face because we're still growing and our road capacity, we've way outgrown it. And it could be an inhibitor to growth, and it probably will be to a certain degree until we really get a focus on how we're going to improve our infrastructure road-wise.
Well, the last question we'll ask everybody is, what do you love most about Johnston County?
I love the heritage. I love the history of it. The people who were here to help grow it and help build it. And then I welcome all the newcomers too, and just, welcome. It's all about coming somewhere where you really want to be a part of. I love that.
Well, how can people learn more about Hometown Realty, Hometown Commercial, and I guess James's land development and all that stuff?
Well, Lipscomb Development's totally different. He's got restaurants, he's got land. I don't do all that, but Our main office is downtown Clayton, right across from Clayton Steakhouse. That's where we started. We've got an office out at Flowers Plantation by the Food Line Shopping Center. We got a team office right here next door to you. We've got an office in Selma. We've got an office in Garner. We've got an office in Raleigh. We've got an office down at the Crystal Coast. We're roughly 300 agents strong, but we're community-based. We're family first type of a business, and we manage from the heart, not from the number.
I can understand that. And it's HTR. What's the website?
MyHTR.com.
MyHTR.com. All right. So if you're interested in what's happening in Clayton or what might be coming, or if you have a project you might need some help with, whether it's selling a house or building a house or even doing commercial development, reach out to Barry and his partner James and any of their other 300 team members, and they will be glad to help you out. We really appreciate Barry Woodard coming and being our guest on this week's episode of the Best Johnston County Podcast. As we mentioned earlier, please like, follow, subscribe to this podcast wherever you see it, whether it be on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, LinkedIn, or any of the other social media channels of the Best Johnston County Podcast. If you'd be so kind as to tag the Best of Johnston County Podcast, your Instagram stories, that will help expand our reach as well. Until next time, I'm your host, Jonathan Breeden.
That's the end of today's episode of Best of Johnston County, a show brought to you by the trusted team at Breeden Law Office. We thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to sharing more interesting facets of this community next week. Every story, every viewpoint adds another thread to the rich tapestry of Johnston County. If the legal aspects highlighted raise some questions, help is just around the corner at www.breedenfirm.com.